This video allows you to control the viewpoint by touching and dragging the screen.
Hello, I visited Changdeokgung and Changgyeonggung Palaces during the Chuseok holiday, a Korean holiday. This video starts at Changdeokgung Palace and continues to Changdeokgung Palace, learning about the history of the two palaces. Please watch until the end. I'm currently standing in front of the entrance to Changdeokgung Palace. Looking to the right, I can see Donhwamun, the palace's main gate, beyond the wall. Unfortunately, it was undergoing renovations on the day I visited. The construction is expected to be completed by July 2027, so the entrance was located at a small gate next to the palace. If you look to the left, you'll see the ticket booth. The palace entrance fee is normally $3, but it's free during the Korean Lunar New Year and Thanksgiving. Perhaps that's why there were already quite a few people at the palace entrance.
Now we're going into the palace. Let's turn right. We've entered the palace. There are 5 grand palaces in Seoul. Among them, Changdeokgung Palace is the only Korean palace listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This demonstrates the importance of Changdeokgung Palace.
This palace is uniquely built with a focus on harmony with nature. Palaces around the world emphasize symmetry, as it is meant to convey the authority and imposing presence of the supreme ruler. However, Changdeokgung Palace differs from this. The layout of the buildings is asymmetrical. Rather than following Confucian philosophy, it was built based on the concept of Taeguk, the great ultimate. Since ancient times, Koreans have valued the harmony of yin and yang between humans and nature. They viewed nature not as a subject for development, but as a source of coexistence.
Korea's 2 most iconic palaces, Gyeongbokgung and Changdeokgung, offer diametrically opposed impressions. Gyeongbokgung is the most idealistic building, thoroughly grounded in Confucian philosophy. When Gyeongbokgung was built, Daejojeon, who contributed to the establishment of a new dynasty, aspired to create an ideal, perfect Confucian state. Indeed, even from Honghwamun, the main gate of Gyeongbokgung, one feels a sense of imposing presence. And once inside, there's not a single tree or grass around the buildings. If I had to live there for the rest of my life, I'd feel suffocated. This actually led to the construction of Changdeokgung Palace. Gyeongbokgung Palace was the first building constructed after the new nation was founded, but King Taejong, the 3rd king of the Joseon Dynasty, disliked living in Gyeongbokgung Palace and ordered the construction of a new palace. Originally, power was shared between the king and his subjects, but when King Taejong seized the throne, he purged those who opposed him. He effectively wielded absolute power, and Changdeokgung Palace reflected his ideal palace. It's ironic that, despite wielding immense power among Korea's previous kings, he designed the palace to emphasize harmony with nature rather than an overbearing form. I arrived at Injeongjeon, the palace's central building. This building was used for major state events and ceremonial purposes. For example, it was used for events like the king's coronation, New Year's Day anniversaries, and it was also a place to welcome foreign envoys. Looking inside the building, you'll see the king's throne in the center, with a painting of the sun, moon, and 5 mountain peaks behind it. This is called the Ilwol Obongdo. This painting is always placed behind the throne during official state ceremonies. This is the view from the platform of Injeongjeon Hall. In ancient times, the king would stand here and look down on his subjects in the front yard. We're back at the palace entrance. Up until now, we've walked the path to Injeongjeon, but this time, we'll walk all the way from the west to the east of the palace. The building immediately visible to the left of the entrance is Gyujanggak. Gyujanggak was a royal academic research institute. King Yeongjo first established it in 1776. This coincided with the American Revolutionary War raging on the other side of the globe. Originally located in a secret garden behind the palace, the institute grew in size and was relocated to the west of the palace. King Yeongjo placed great importance on practical scholarship. Therefore, Gyujanggak conducted research in all fields that could contribute substantially to national development. There was a movement to study Western scholarship and apply it to national institutions. At this time, Korea's social elite was deeply immersed in Neo-Confucian philosophy. This was similar to how medieval Europeans were deeply immersed in Catholicism. Jung Yakyung was a prominent figure at Gyujanggak. He was a renowned scholar in Korea, translating Western scholarship and adapting it to Korean society. He transformed a society that had become obsessed with philosophy and neglected scientific thinking. Looking to the lower right, you can see where an artificial river once flowed. To the left of this river is Gyujanggak, and to the right, across the river, is the Royal Hospital and Shrine. Now we pass Gyujanggak and cross the river.
The royal shrine houses portraits of all past kings. The royal family prayed to their ancestors here. Unfortunately, during the Korean War in 1950, almost all of the portraits of the past kings were burned. Only 3 portraits remain, and the rest were lost.
Passing through the gate ahead, you arrive at my favorite place. All the buildings you see here are royal shrines, called Seonwonjeon. The reason I love this space is simple. It's a beautiful view. The tall building in the foreground is Injeongjeon, the central building we saw earlier. The buildings overlap like a mountain range, and it's truly breathtaking. As you can see from the path we've walked so far, the palace interior is like a maze. Of all the Korean palaces, this one has preserved its original appearance almost completely. Like Changdeokgung Palace, Gyeongbokgung Palace originally had densely packed buildings, resembling a maze. However, most of it was destroyed by war, leaving only the main buildings. This palace, though largely preserved in its original form, was destroyed by fire twice. During the Japanese invasion of 1592, King Seonjo abandoned the palace to escape the Japanese army that had reached the capital. At that time, all the palaces in Korea were burned down. After the war, King Seonjo returned and began restoring the palaces. Of the Gyeongbokgung and Changdeokgung palaces, he ordered Changdeokgung to be restored first. Because the reconstruction of Gyeongbokgung Palace was so expensive, Changdeokgung Palace, with its architecture emphasizing harmony and utilizing the natural terrain, was relatively cheaper to build than Gyeongbokgung Palace. Thus, Changdeokgung Palace was restored first and became the de facto central palace from the mid to late Joseon Dynasty. We've arrived at Injeongjeon Hall again. So far, we've explored the western side of the palace. This time, we'll pass through this building and explore the eastern side. While the western side of the palace was where the officials worked, the eastern side primarily housed the king's offices and study. Outside the gate, the buildings, painted in a variety of colors and harmoniously arranged with pine trees, are impressive. The trees within the palace are at least 300 to 700 years old. I walked to Seonjeongjeon Hall on the left. Entering through the front door, you'll find the king's office. This is called Seonjeongjeon. Most state council meetings are believed to have taken place here. There are also records of small celebrations occasionally being held here. Once a year, seniors over 80 years old were invited to the palace for a celebration of longevity. Looking at the ceiling, you can see a cloister. This was the king's office, and its space symbolized authority. This is the interior of the king's office. Like the Injeongjeon Hall we saw earlier, a painting of the Ilwal Obongdo stands behind the king's chair. This building stands out from other structures. Looking outside, you'll see blue tiles on the roof. It was built using tiles from the now lost Injeongjeong Palace. Gwanghaegun, the tyrant of the time, built Injeongjeong Palace, the largest new palace in Korea. It was built west of Gyeongbokgung Palace and is recorded to have been larger than Gyeongbokgung Palace. Building another palace after Changdeokgung Palace had already been rebuilt threatened national finances with collapse, and the people suffered from severe economic hardship. Unable to endure any longer, the nobles elected King Yeongjo as the new king and led an army and rebellion within the palace. Ultimately, the new king ascended to the throne. We've left the king's office and are now in front of the adjacent building, Huijeongdang. This building also served as an office. Inside the building, the king also had his bedroom. In the early Joseon Dynasty, this hall served as a conference room for meeting with various officials. However, by the late Joseon Dynasty, it was used more as a main office than the previously mentioned blue-tiled building. A unique feature of this building is its structure, consisting of 3 buildings connected by a corridor. This creates a very spacious interior. This is a result of a renovation that incorporated some Western architectural elements. In the 20th century, the last king of the Joseon Dynasty, Sejong, resided here, and the palace itself was also adopted to modern lifestyles. Traditional Korean architecture features underfloor heating, known as ondol, which warms the entire floor, so it's customary to remove shoes before entering. However, this building does not use underfloor heating, instead using carpeted floors and radiator heating. There's a record that King Jeongjo held a celebratory banquet at Huijeongdang for the students who were accepted to Sungkyunkwan. Sungkyunkwan is Korea's oldest institution of higher education, serving as a university today. I came to the innermost part of this building, called Daejojeon. This building was the bedroom where the king and queen shared their quarters. Taejong, the third king of the Joseon Dynasty, who built Changdeokgung Palace, also died here. Inside the building, chairs decorated with traditional mother-of-pearl are striking. I turn around and descend the stairs. The building directly ahead of you as you descend the stairs is the main building of Huijeongdang. There's a record that King Yeongjo handled personnel affairs there. He was King Jeongjo's grandfather. He was in charge of evaluating key officials and promoting them. We're leaving the building. This time, we'll explore the building beyond the fence on the left. Once you pass through the gate ahead and exit, be sure to look to the right. The view of the Huijeongdang building and the towering Injeongjeon Hall is truly beautiful. There's a large open space in front, which was apparently created to accommodate vehicles. We entered the building with the high wall on the left that we saw earlier. This is the Crown Prince's study, called Seonjeongjeon. It's a famous spot in Changdeokgung Palace for taking commemorative photos. Its unique asymmetrical structure, resembling two buildings joined together, is a design intentionally designed to harmonize with nature. As you've seen while walking through Changdeokgung Palace, with the exception of the central building, Injeongjeon, not a single building is symmetrical. We left Seonjeonggak. If you look to the left, you'll see the path leading to the King's secret garden. Unfortunately, only a select few with reservations were allowed in, so I wasn't able to. This time, we'll pass through Changdeokgung Palace and enter Changyeonggung Palace, which connects to the east. Although Changdeokgung Palace and Changdeokgung Palace were given separate names, the royal family combined the two palaces and called them Donghwamun. This refers to the palace in the east. The five palaces were often referred to as Donghwamun, Seogwamun, and Bukwamun, each with its own distinct location. You can think of them as being referred to as the East, West, and North palaces, respectively. This palace is the only one of the five that allows views of the buildings from within. This, too, was built to preserve the natural topography. The high hill was left intact, and steps and a walking path were built along the hill. Looking straight ahead, you can see Namsan Tower, Seoul's landmark, in the distance. It's said that in ancient times, kings enjoyed hunting on Namsan Mountain. On their way back from hunting, they would tour villages to gauge the public sentiment. Looking at the floor, you can see that the large rock formations haven't been leveled. They've been deliberately left in their natural state. It looks like a gift-giving event is taking place inside the palace. Visitors are lining up. The staff are wearing traditional attire. This palace was primarily used as a living space for the king's family. The queen and the king's mother resided here. The building on the right, known as Gyeongjeon, is where King Jeongjo was born. His mother, Lady Hae-gyung-hung, played a significant role in the Joseon royal family and is known for her family's involvement in numerous historical events. The pavilion visible on the left was called Haminjeong. It's known to have been the most frequently used pavilion by King Yeongjo, King Jeongjo's grandfather. It was there that Yeongjo publicly reprimanded his son, Crown Prince Sado. Extremely stressed, the son attempted suicide by throwing himself into a well. His courtiers narrowly rescued him, but the conflict with his father deepened. This is the back of Myeongjeongjeon, the central building of Changdeokgung Palace. It's a popular spot for citizens to take commemorative photos for their first birthday parties. To the right, you can see couples lining up to take commemorative photos. In Korea, it's customary to celebrate the first anniversary of a child's birth. Uniquely, the building features a corridor designed to clearly delineate the workspace. While the palace primarily served as a private residence for the king's family, the central building was clearly used for offices and receptions. The building visible on the right is Munjeongjeon, the king's office. This is where a tragic event in the Joseon Dynasty took place. This is where King Yeongjo imprisoned his son, Crown Prince Sado, in a rice chest and then executed him. It was a tragic and agonizing event, almost unprecedented in the world, where a father, who had hoped his son would be perfect, drove him into mental illness through flawed educational principles, and, unable to communicate with him, killed him. After Crown Prince Sado's death, his son, King Jeongjo, became the crown prince and laid the foundation for practical learning in Korea. We're descending the main building and exiting through the main gate. This Changdeokgung Palace was built by King Sejong the Great, who created the Korean writing system Hangul. It was to provide his father, King Taejong, with a place to live. As explained at the beginning of the video, King Taejong is the king who built Changdeokgung Palace. This palace was initially small, but additional buildings were added over time, eventually reaching its current size. It is considered a particularly valuable research resource for historians. The main building, Myeongjeongjeon Hall, has never been destroyed by fire since the Japanese invasion, making it the oldest surviving palace structure. And this palace is the only one facing east.
In feng shui terms, buildings facing south are considered optimal for natural light due to their latitude. However, this palace was designed with a symbolic emphasis on fully embracing the energy of the rising sun in the east.
I'm completely out of the palace. This concludes my tour of Changdeokgung and Changgyeonggung palaces.